and welcome to Devereux's Fireside Chat video series. At Devereux, we understand that our families are the first and foremost experts on their loved ones who are in our care. Through their input, our Family Advisory Board and its Sibling Engagement Committee help our team members enrich the roles our families play in their loved ones' lives, and they enhance the overall Devereux experience for the individuals and families we serve. And today we get to talk to two of those family members. So a big welcome to Devereux President and CEO Carl Clark. Hi, Jane. Jane Taylor is one of our Devereux National Trustees. She's also co-chair of our Family Advisory Board and co-chair of our Sibling Engagement Committee. Jane's brother John resided at our Devereux, Pennsylvania Adult Services Center, where he lived and thrived on our campus until he passed away in 2010. So we're happy to have you here, Jane. I also want to welcome Danny Kelly, a member of our Family Advisory Board and also a co-chair of our Sibling Engagement Committee. Danny's sister, Annie, who is 22 now, has been supported by Devereux since she was just 5 years old. Carl, I want to kick off this conversation with you. So tell me why it's so important for our family members to be involved in the work we do, and how does family engagement help our organization?
First off, the family is the real subject matter expert on that individual. So that's where we start from that perspective. And it's incredibly important, even woven into our governing bylaws, we have a requirement for over 30% of our trustees to be family members or have lived experience. So Jane is living embodiment of that as a governing trustee who has a wealth of experience because of her brother and growing up with him and his journey to Devereux. So it's something that we really value as an organization and have found a way to embed it into the way we operate.
Absolutely. Thanks, Carl. Jane and Danny, if you're open to sharing, we'd love to know a little bit more about your siblings. Jane, please tell us about John.
Well, John was quite a character, and he loved to engage people. He loved to talk to people. He could be very, very funny. He could be so obstinate, and at times aggressive. So it was a real roller coaster with him. But I loved him very, very much, and that was part of the family experience. And anyway, I miss him.
Thanks, Jane. Thank you for sharing. Danny, tell us about Annie.
Yeah, so my sister Annie and I were about a year and a half apart, so we kind of grew up together. She loves to write, whether she loves to write out her schedule, she loves to write about all the people that she's seeing for the week, and then she loves to listen to music. So if you ever see her, she'll always have headphones on. But growing up, it was always the same few songs that she would listen to. Just thinking about it, anytime I listen to one of those songs, it would always brings me back and just reminds me of her. So, but yeah, she's kind of like Jane said, a character, but she's awesome.
And wait, Annie, you have to share what are one or two of those songs that Annie loves?
Okay. So she would only play clips of them, but there would be Stronger by Kelly Clarkson. She would just go to like halfway through the song and then rewind it and play the same thing over and over again. Same with, it was Love the Way You Lie by Eminem and Rihanna, but only the Rihanna part. So not even the Eminem. Is funny, but also after hearing it about 100 times, it got a little repetitive, I will say.
Can I just jump back in here and say John was the same way, and his songs were a little dated at one point. He was just obsessed with the theme to Arthur. You get caught between the moon and New York City, and I was driving to the Logan Airport, and it was before we had tapes and could do that. So he just wanted to know when it was going to come on the radio. And then just as we were entering the Harbor Tunnel, it came on the radio.
Oh, no.
Into the tunnel, and it's gone. And it was like, I've got to get out of this tunnel before it's over. And I did.
But it's funny.
But
A huge Christopher Cross hit. We love getting these small glimpses into your siblings' lives. So thank you for sharing. Danny, I wanted to ask both of you this, but starting with Danny, how has Devereux changed your family's life and Annie's life?
Yeah, so I mean, Annie's been with Deborah since she was 5 years old. So in her life, I mean, there's always change, right? But there have been very few constants. Even I'm thinking about myself when I moved to college, that was a huge transition for her. But Deborah has always really been a constant within her life. And not just her life, but my life and my family's life as well. I mean, so many of our memories growing up involve Devereaux. I'm thinking about family days when she went to Devereaux Cares for school. So we used to go to the family day every year. One of my favorite memories with her is taking her to prom when she was in school. And that was really special for me and especially for her. So, and that was through Devereaux. So just throughout growing up, a lot of the memories that I hold closest with Annie is with Devereaux. And now that she's getting older, she's out of Devereux Cares, and it sort of becomes and takes on a whole new meaning for me because she's an adult now, and someone's going to have to take care of her one day as she continues to get older. So, just something else I kind of think about with Devereux as well.
I can only imagine. Thank you for that, Danny. Jane, same question. How do you feel Devereux changed John's life and your life?
well, John also started at Devereux when he was young, probably a little older than Annie, probably around 9 or 10. I don't remember exactly what year. And, that was in the 1960s, and things were very, very different for a family who had a member with special needs back then. And we had pretty much my parents had exhausted what was available locally for him. And I mean, they were just out of options at that point. And I don't remember how they found Devereux, but they did. And it was a very hard decision. I mean, I don't know how they made it. I was only 10 or 11 myself, but I do remember how hard it was for everybody when we brought him to Devereux. But there was also some sense of relief that there was a place where he could go and have friends. I mean, the local kids had started teasing him, and it wasn't always safe for him,
Mhm.
and that he could be cared for and safe and have a community and have his needs addressed in a positive, compassionate way. So, and Danny already brought this up. I do not know how we would have gotten through the years when Johnny was aging. Even though he was 14 months younger than I was, he aged more quickly. And he was aging, and my parents were aging, and I was doing everything I could. But it was, Devereux who, they really were the lifeline and gave us all the support we needed.
Thank you so much, Jane. Carl, these are pretty powerful comments. How do they make you feel?
A lot of gratitude for the really great stewardship that has been shown over the years at Devereux. And Jane takes us back to the 60s, and Annie's much more contemporary, but even so, it's pretty tremendous to think that you had a culture of caring back then, and that continues today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Carl. Jane, I want to talk about the work you and Danny are doing on our Sibling Engagement Committee. But first, why is sibling engagement so important when it comes to the care of a loved one with different needs?
For several reasons. One of which, as the sibling usually has the longest relationship with their family member with special needs, and is very often the person responsible for care and finances and everything else at the end of their sibling's life. So preparation for that is necessary, support is necessary for that. And the perspective that a sibling has is very different from the perspective that parents have. And they sometimes can see things in a way that nobody else can. They have a special relationship with their loved one, and it brings a different way of looking at things and interpreting events, and having siblings involved just strengthens the whole team.
100%. And I mean, I've lived my whole life with Annie, just thinking sort of what you were just talking about perspectives. Annie was diagnosed with autism when I was 4 years old. So it's almost like my entire life growing up has been with Annie being diagnosed with an intellectual disability. And while both the parents' perspective and the sibling perspective are really important in their family member's life, they're also just very different because I haven't, parents have sort of had a life before they had their child with special needs. And for me, I can't imagine my life at all without Annie. So I just think that that is just really important.
That is just beautiful. Thank you, Danny. This actually leads right into the work you're doing as co-chairs of our Sibling Engagement Committee. So Jane, I'll start with you. Tell us about this committee and what are its priorities?
I am really excited about this committee. It's been a dream of mine for a very long time. And we're small and mighty. I think there are five, what, Danny, five, six
Yeah,
members?
five people, I think, five or six.
Yeah, and everybody is incredibly committed and enthusiastic. Our priority is to provide siblings with the support they need to be engaged and involved and enhance everybody's experience. And we're starting small. We have big plans, but we wanted to start with things that could be done relatively easy, the low-hanging fruit. So, we're making efforts we started with trying to enhance the experience, the safety and the care of a loved one when he or she is in the hospital. Just a simple document that can give the tending staff more information. And we're not short on ideas. It's a matter of whittling them down to what's the most effective.
That's another just something that I really think that we've focused and prioritized as a committee is being able to do all of that for the siblings.
Thank you, Danny. You said that very, very well. And that was a big group I left out. That is one of the main concerns of this committee. It can be a lonely road being a sibling. And it is just really nice to know other people have had similar experiences. Oddly, yes, it's great to have support when problems arise. But it's also great to be able to talk to people who understand how special the wins are. I mean, they don't look like the wins in other people's siblings' lives, so they probably don't understand. But it's nice to have people who we can share that with.
Yeah, I remember when Annie swallowed a pill for the first time because she had to take medicine. That was such a huge deal for us. Like we had been trying to do that for years and years, and she'd never do it. And then one day she did it, and we all were just so excited. And it's hard to tell that to somebody who doesn't know what that experience feels like. So I just think back to moments like that I just really cherish. And I love sharing them with people like you, Jane, who also understand.
Yeah, it's just you get each other. And
Yeah.
You're not an island when you're on this committee and sharing with each other. Carl, what do you think about the work this group is doing?
I think it's fantastic. It pulls together a set of life experiences and puts it in a venue where it can be useful to others who are going through a similar experience. So it's a great tribute to the work that gets done here every day.
Absolutely. Final question, Jane. It's been almost 15 years since John's passing. Why is it important for you to stay connected to Devereux? And what would you want people to know about John outside of his love for, Christopher Cross Arthur song and that he was strong-willed, and you've given us some really great insight. What else would you want people to take away about John?
Well, before I get to that, I was just thinking about the love between siblings. when John passed, I was unprepared for what hole it was going to leave in my life. And I realized the only way I could describe it afterward is that my compass had lost its North Pole. And, I realized that for 57 years, not everything, but a lot of our family life revolved around him and thinking about him. And even when he was at Devereux, there was just that awareness. And it was really hard. I missed him, and it was a big change in family dynamics and just my sense of self. What I'd like, I stay involved with Devereux because my family's always been involved with Devereux, and I felt my current involvement started the year after Johnny died. And I think it was, there's some way I can fill this hole. I can jump back in and do something. And what I'd like people to know about Johnny and about Devereux, I think can be told in a story. John, in addition to other things, was a bit of a philosopher, sort of, if you could follow it. And he had overheard a conversation about end of life issues. And, he would take things in and they'd come out in different ways. And that night, we were waiting for a table at a restaurant, and he said to me, he called me Jan. He said, Jan, someday we're going to miss this island, aren't we? And I thought, he's talking about Manhattan Island. Okay. Yep, John, we will. And he said, someday when we're up there all together, we're going to look down and we're going to miss this place. And I said, yeah, we will, John. And he said, and you know what we have to do until then? I said, what? He said, we just have to keep on following the yellow brick road. And I thought for a minute, and I thought, that's a pretty good way to look at life. And I stay involved with Devereux because they were there. You were there. And by our sides, holding our hands down as we walk down that yellow brick road. And yeah, I guess Devereux's been my family, and I'm happy to keep it as my family and make the experience for other families as good as it can be.
Wow. Jane, thank you so much for sharing that about John. Just amazing. And turning it to Danny, Danny, what are your hopes for Annie as she gets older?
Yeah. First of all, Jane, thank you for sharing that. It was incredibly powerful. It was awesome. Turning it to Annie and just making me think about her. I mean, she's grown so much since she was little. I mean, when she was 3, 4, 5 years old, people didn't think that she was ever going to talk. And she still is, we call it minimally verbal, where she doesn't speak perfectly, but she's able to communicate. Sometimes she had to have her repeat things, and she has an iPad to help her communicate, but she's figured out a way to do it. And I'm just so proud of how hard she's worked to get to this point. And again, like what you just said, Jane, with Devereux being there every step of the way. I mean, Devereux was a constant in her life as she's been on her journey. And my hopes for her is that she just continues to grow and just that she's in the best situation for her. And yeah, I'm really proud of her for all the growth she's already done. And I just hope that in the future, she continues to do the same.
I just want to thank you all for this really heartwarming, heartfelt, and really honest discussion. And it's just been wonderful talking to you. Thank you for taking the time. That's actually all the time we have for today's Fireside Chat. And I just want our viewers to know that at Devereux, our families are critical partners in everything we do. You've heard it here. And our siblings play that really important long-term role in the care and well-being of their loved ones. Devereux is so committed to its work with our Sibling Engagement Committee to find ways for these family members to connect and share for the betterment of their loved ones, and so they don't feel like they are on an island. Because, when it comes to following that yellow brick road of life, as Jane mentioned, Devereux will always be with our families every step of the way. Take care and have a great day.